Our sermon text today is from the book of Exodus, chapter 5, verses 1, the entire chapter, 1 to 23, and then into chapter 6, verse 1. We continue in our study of the book of Exodus this fall in this sermon series, Finding God in the Wilderness, and we pick up the story today in chapter 5, going into the first of chapter 6. And let me just remind you, this is God's word to us. It's given to us because He loves us. Afterwards, Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go so that they may celebrate a festival to me in the wilderness." But Pharaoh said, "Who is the Lord, that I should heed him and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go." Then they said, "The God of the Hebrews has revealed himself to us. Let us go a 3 days' journey into the wilderness to sacrifice to the Lord our God, or he will fall upon us with pestilence or sword." But the king of Egypt said to them, "Moses and Aaron, why are you taking the people away from their work? Get to your labors." Pharaoh continued, "Now they are more numerous than the people of the land, and yet you want them to stop working?" That same day, Pharaoh commanded the taskmasters of the people, as well as their supervisors, "You shall no longer give the people straw to make bricks as before. Let them go and gather straw for themselves. But you shall require of them the same quantity of bricks as they have made previously. Do not diminish it, for they are lazy. That is why they cry, 'Let us go and offer sacrifice to our God.' Let heavier work be laid on them. Then they will labor at it and pay no attention to deceptive words." So the taskmasters and the supervisors of the people went out and said to the people, "Thus says Pharaoh, I will not give you straw. Go and get straw yourselves wherever you can find it, but your work will not be lessened in the least." So the people scattered throughout the land of Egypt to gather stubble for straw. The taskmasters were urgent, saying, "Complete your work, the same daily assignment as when you were given straw." And the supervisors of the Israelites, whom Pharaoh's taskmasters had set over them, were beaten and were asked, "Why did you not finish the required quantity of bricks yesterday and today as you did before?" And the Israelite supervisors came to Pharaoh and cried, "Why do you treat your servants like this? No straw is given to your servants, yet they say to us, 'Make bricks.' Look how your servants are beaten. You are unjust to your own people." He said, "You are lazy. Lazy! That is why you say, 'Let us go and sacrifice to the Lord.' Go now and work, for no straw shall be given you, but you shall still deliver the same number of bricks." The Israelite supervisors saw that they were in trouble when they were told, "You shall not lessen your daily number of bricks." And as they left Pharaoh, they came upon Moses and Aaron, who were waiting to meet them. And they said to them, "The Lord look upon you and judge. You have brought us into bad odor with Pharaoh and his officials. You have put a sword in their hand to kill us." Then Moses turned again to the Lord and said, "O Lord, why have you mistreated this people? Why did you ever send me? Since I first came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has mistreated this people, and you have done nothing at all to deliver your people." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Now you shall see what I will do to Pharaoh. Indeed, by a mighty hand he will let them go. By a mighty hand he will drive them out of his land." The word of the Lord. So previously on the book of Exodus, sort of like at the beginning of TV shows, really this is going to be a previously on, a bit of a recap, because we skipped a bunch to get here to chapter 5. We left off last week in chapter 3 with God revealing himself to Moses in the burning bush. So to recap and to go over some of the stuff we skipped in the rest of chapter 3 and chapter 4, we're going to breeze through this quickly because, well, there's a lot of good and really weird and interesting things in there, and I don't want to skip it. So if you recall, God appears to Moses. Moses gives excuse number 1. Who am I? Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and deliver your people? And then he gives excuse number 2. Okay, but who are you? Who are you that are sending me to go and to deliver? And we see there in chapter 3, God first sort of responds with this cryptic non-answer, who I am, who I am. That's who I am. I am who I am. I will be who I will be. And then in verse 15 of chapter 3, he does go on to reveal his name. And he uses the word Yahweh. Yahweh. Our English translations always put Lord in small caps whenever the word Yahweh, the Tetragrammaton, appears in our scriptures. But that word there is actually the word Yahweh, not the word Adonai, which is the actual Hebrew word for the word Lord. If you want to know more about that, then ask the people who went to Bible study. They got a whole Hebrew lesson in this, and they are now experts at it, and they can explain to you why our English translations say Lord small caps instead of Yahweh. But just so you know, from now on, throughout the rest of the story, whenever we get to Lord small caps, I'm going to say Yahweh, and that's why, because I think it's important to the story. Well, the summation is God's name is I will be who I will be, and I will be what I need to be for you, which is mostly my name is I am with you, if you want to sum all that up. Still, Moses is not quite satisfied, and he has excuse number 3 in chapter 4, 1-9. He says, what if the Hebrew people don't listen to me? And again, Moses has a point. Why would they listen to him? I mean, they're going to see him as an Egyptian. They might view him as a spy. They might think he's an insider. He might think he's a mole for Pharaoh, a plant. They might see him as a traitor to their own people. And it didn't go so well the first time Moses tried to intervene in their lives. If you recall, they basically said, who died and made you king over us? Why should we listen to what you have to say? So Moses says, what if they don't listen to me? Fair point, but just prior in chapter 3, verse 18, God said, and I quote, they will listen to you. Okay, so he just said they will listen to you, and yet Moses still objects. So even though he just told Moses that they will listen to him, and Moses is still asking, but what if they don't? He says, okay, fine, Yahweh says to Moses, I'm going to give you 3 magic tricks. And so he gives Moses 3 magic tricks. He can throw a staff on the ground and it'll turn into a snake. And then he can grab the snake by the tail and it'll turn back into a staff. He gives him the ability to put his hand in his coat, pull it out. It's all leprous. Put the leprous hand back in his coat, pull it out. It's healed. And then he also gives him the ability to take some water out of the Nile and pour it on the ground. And the water will turn into blood. Well, what is that all about? Basically, just all to say Yahweh is bigger than the cobra of Egypt. Okay, the Egyptians, they worshiped cobras. They thought cobras, you've seen the imagery, were depictions and representations of their God. So Yahweh is bigger than the cobra of Egypt, and this is a sneak preview, a little foretaste, a little foreshadowing of the plagues. And only Yahweh can both send plagues and take away plagues. That's the whole point of being able to take the hand in and out of the coat. Excuse number 4. Moses isn't done, right? He's given all these things and Moses still complains in chapter 4, verse 10. Excuse number 4, okay, fine. But here's the deal. I'm not really good at public speaking. I get stage fright. I'm not very eloquent. I don't like being in front of other people. So maybe I'm not the best choice because I'm not a very good public speaker. And Yahweh says back to Moses, who made man's mouth? Who gave man his tongue? Who even made speech to begin with? I did. So I will give you the words to say. Okay? Now, let's go. Get moving. All right? Come on. Let's get a move on here. And still, Moses is not quite ready to go. And he has excuse number 5 in chapter 4:13. He says, oh, my Lord. And he doesn't say Yahweh, God's name. He says, oh, my Lord Adonai, Lord lowercase. Oh, my Lord, please send someone else. Anybody but me. Come on, you got to have a better hero out there. Please send someone else. And then it says that God's anger was kindled against Moses. Okay. All right. So it seems that Moses finally crossed the line, but even still, Yahweh says, fine, your brother Aaron, he's eloquent. He's a good public speaker. So I will tell you what to say. You will tell your brother Aaron what to say, and Aaron will speak for you. Now, take the magic staff I gave you and get going. And at this point, Moses does. He finally collects his wife, Zipporah, and their sons, and he sets off back to Egypt. But along the way, when they stop to camp for a night, Yahweh tries to kill someone. What? Now, our English Bibles just say Yahweh tried to kill him. Well, who is him? Is it Moses, or is it one of Moses' sons? Well, at any rate, Zipporah, Moses' wife, saves him, whoever him is. And remember, back at the beginning of the story, I said Zipporah is one of 7 heroines in the story who are really keeping this thing alive and going. Well, she's one of the 7 heroines of the story, and she saves whoever him is by circumcising one of their sons and touching the feet or some other part of the anatomy. This is Hebrew, and things can mean different things. At any rate, touches his feet with the foreskin. And she says to Moses, "Truly you are a bridegroom of blood to me." What in the world? The Bible's weird, people. Don't forget that if you read it. The Bible is weird. This is not some sort of like pietistic rule book. All right, this is not G-rated. There's a lot of weird stuff in here. Well, what is all this? Likely the him is one of the sons. Most likely the firstborn son. And the shedding of blood protects the firstborn, similar to the last plague that we'll see later, where only the firstborns are protected by the shedding of blood. This is a lot like Jacob having to wrestle with the angel of the Lord or God all night long. If you know that story back in Genesis, Jacob wrestles all night long with God. And Jacob wrestles with God all night long before he enters into a new stage in the history of Israel. He has this lethal encounter with God. And so another lethal encounter with God is happening right before another new stage in the history of God's people and in their story. And Zipporah gets it. You are a bridegroom of blood to me. She gets it. So basically she's saying to Moses, okay, I'm going with you, but you are most likely going to get us all killed. In verse 27 of chapter 4, Moses finally meets his brother Aaron. They go to the elders. Aaron does the talking and performs the signs. And everybody says, hooray! Awesome. This is great. Yahweh has seen our misery. And they bow down in worship. And then we get to chapter 5. Hey, Pharaoh, Yahweh says, let my people go. And Pharaoh says, who is this Yahweh, and why should I listen to him? I don't know him. I don't know Yahweh. Why should I do what he tells me to do? This is the point where Yahweh is saying, see, Moses, I told you this would happen. And to be honest, Moses doesn't really need Yahweh to predict that this is how Pharaoh will respond. I mean, think about it. Think about any real life or fictional story you know where the powerless ask a ruler of a mighty nation for something drastic to change in the way that they are being treated. When do they ever just roll over and grant it? Hardly ever. Like less than 1%, right? They don't. They don't just roll over and grant it. And Moses says, okay, how about just 3 days? How about just 3 days? Let us go 3 days. I mean, Yahweh told Moses to say that. Did God really mean they would come back to slavery after a 3-day retreat in the wilderness, worshiping Yahweh away from Egypt's gods? Is that really what he meant? Well, more likely, it's just a ploy. It didn't really mean 3 days. They weren't going to come back to slavery after 3 days. It's just a ploy to expose just how reticent Pharaoh is to let the Hebrews go anywhere. Not 3 days, not 3 seconds, am I going to let you step 1 foot out of Egypt. And this is where Moses improvises. Okay, he starts to ad-lib a little bit. Oh, but if you don't let us go, Yahweh is going to fall upon us with pestilence and swords. You don't want your slave labor to be decimated, do you? You got to let us go, or else Yahweh says he's going to kill us all. Wait, did Yahweh actually say that? Did he actually threaten that if Pharaoh doesn't let the Hebrews go, he's going to fall on the Hebrews with pestilence and sword? No, he didn't. He didn't say that. It sounds kind of like, did God really say you would surely die? Does that ring a bell? Did God really say you would surely die? In that case, in Genesis 3, yes, he did. But in this case, no, he didn't. He didn't say that. He never says that. What Moses and Aaron should have done was use their magic tricks. But for some reason, they don't. God gave them these signs to perform, but for some reason they don't do that. They decide to ad-lib and do something else, but it doesn't matter because the effect is still going to be the same no matter what. Pharaoh digs his heels in even further. He's very clear. The production line of the empire will not stop. And it seems that these slaves have way too much time on their hands, so guess what? Don't provide the Israelites with the materials that they need to make bricks. They have to gather materials for themselves, but they still have to produce the same quota of bricks every day. That'll teach them to focus on their work and stop all this deceptive, we need to go worship our God in the wilderness nonsense. So things have gone from bad to even worse. Listen again to verse 19 to 21. The Israelite supervisors saw that they were in trouble when they were told, you shall not lessen your daily number of bricks. As they left Pharaoh, they came upon Moses and Aaron, who were waiting to meet them. They said to them, the Lord look upon you and judge. You have brought us into a bad odor with Pharaoh and his officials, and have put a sword in their hand to kill us. The unenviable job of middle management, right? These Israelite supervisors, these Hebrew supervisors, they try to reason with the taskmasters. They try to reason with Pharaoh himself. And when they get nowhere, they take it to Moses and Aaron. You meddlers, you have made us stink. We stank in the eyes and the presence of Pharaoh and his officials, and they are going to beat us to death now. Thank you very little, Moses and Aaron, for everything that you've done. It sort of reminds me of that line in the movie Saving Private Ryan. Have you seen that? Where you have this scene where you talk about complaints only go up the chain of command. They don't go down. Superiors don't get to complain down, about things to those under them. That complaints only go up. But poop, rolls downhill. You have to remember that. So Moses, the complaint has risen up to him. So now he's going to run the complaint up the chain even further. And he says in verse 22, Moses turned again to Yahweh and said, "O Yahweh, why have you mistreated this people? Why did you ever send me? Since I first came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has mistreated this people, and you have done nothing at all to deliver your people." You have done nothing at all to deliver your people. Really? Nothing? Nothing at all, you say? This point in the narrative reminds me of another story that I've always really enjoyed. It's the story in C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia, the story A Horse and His Boy. It's kind of not one of the more popular ones, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and Prince Caspian, and all those. They get all the attention. But The Horse and His Boy is actually really, really good. It's about a horse and his boy. And the boy's name is Shasta. And Shasta is an orphan. Shasta grows up not knowing who his parents are, and he grows up in a foreign land under a foreign person. Does that ring any bells? And he has a pretty harsh life, pretty tough life, but eventually Shasta has to escape that land and get to this other place, and he has a pretty rough go of it along the way. And, well, I'm going to read you a little portion of it. So gather around, children. It's story time. I even have this big, giant version of the Chronicles of Narnia because this is the only one that we have in our house. But it's really nice. And so I'm going to read you a little bit because I think it reminds us a lot of what's going on here in the book of Exodus chapter 5. Shasta says, I do think that I must be the most unfortunate boy that ever lived in the whole world. Everything goes right for everyone except me. Those Narnian lords and ladies got safe away from Tashbaan. I was left behind. Erebus and Bree and Wen are all snug as anything with that old hermit. Of course, I was the one who was sent on. King Loon and his people must have got safely into the castle and shut the gates long before Rabadash arrived, but I got left out. And being very tired and have nothing inside him, he felt so sorry for himself that the tears rolled down his cheeks. What put a stop to all this was a sudden fright. Shasta discovered that someone or somebody was walking beside him. It was pitch dark, and he could see nothing, and the thing, or person, was going so quietly that he could hardly hear any footfalls. What he could hear was breathing. So it goes on, and Shasta's, he's really scared, it's dark, and he can't see what it is, but he can hear it breathing, and he can feel the breathing. And eventually he says, who are you? Who are you? Are you a ghost? And the thing reassures him, nope, I'm not a ghost, by breathing on Shasta. I wonder where C.S. Lewis got that metaphor from. He breathes on Shasta, and it says once more, Shasta felt the warm breath of the thing on his hand and face. There, it said, that is not the breath of a ghost. Tell me your sorrows. So Shasta was a little reassured by the breath, so he told how he had never known his real father or mother, how he had been brought up sternly by the fishermen. Then he told the story of his escape and how they were chased by lions and forced to swim for their lives, and of all their dangers in Tashbaan, and about his night among the tombs, and how the beasts howled at him out in the desert. And he told about the heat and thirst of their desert journey, and how they were almost at their goal when another lion chased them and wounded Erebus, and also how very long it was since he had had anything to eat. I do not call you unfortunate, said the large voice. Don't you think it was bad luck to meet so many lions, said Shasta. There was only one lion, said the voice. What on earth do you mean? I've just told you there was at least two the first night, and there was only one. But he was swift of foot. How do you know? Shasta asked. I was the lion. And as Shasta gaped with open mouth and said nothing, the voice continued. I was the lion who forced you to join with Erebus. I was the cat who comforted you among the houses of the dead. I was the lion who drove the jackals from you while you slept. I was the lion who gave the horses the new strength of fear for the last mile so that you should reach King Loon in time. And I was the lion, you do not remember, who pushed the boat in which you lay, a child near death, so it came to shore where a man sat, wakeful at midnight to receive you. Then it was you who wounded Erebus. It was I. But what for? Child, said the voice, I am telling you your story, not hers. I tell no one any story but his own. Who are you? Asked Shasta. Myself, said the voice, very deep and low that the earth shook, and again, myself, loud and clear and gay, and then the third time, myself, whispered so softly you could hardly hear it, and yet it seemed to come from all around you as if the leaves rustled with it. Are you allowed to argue with God? Are you allowed to question his purposes in the world? Are you allowed, like Moses, to raise your objections to his plan? Are you allowed to complain, I am the unluckiest boy, I am the unluckiest girl in the whole world? Abraham certainly did. Oh, Yahweh, you're going to give me an heir? You're going to give me all these people? I don't have an heir, and my wife is too old to have children. Sarah herself laughed when she heard God's promises. Really? Yeah, I'm going to have a child. You seen how old I am? The Psalms are full of arguing with God. Why, Lord? Why? Where are you? Why have you forgotten me? Why have you forsaken me? Why does it seem like the evil go unpunished and the righteous suffer? The Psalms are full of this. I mean, Jesus himself argued with the Father in the garden. Lord, if there be any other way, let this cup pass from me. You can argue and negotiate with God. You can. Now, there's also nothing wrong with, sir, yes, sir, and doing what he asks you to do. I just want you to understand that there is nothing more pious about that response than the other response. You can argue and negotiate with God, but there also comes a time when you must move forward in faith and act, no matter how small that faith may be. So, where is the line between I can and I can't? I don't know. I have no idea. You'll have to experiment and find out for yourself. It varies. I mean, Mary questioned, how can this be? How am I going to have a child? I'm a virgin. And Zechariah questioned, how can this be? How are we going to have a baby? Have you seen my wife Elizabeth? She's been infertile. And yet Zechariah was struck mute, and Mary seemed to have gotten away with it. Why? I don't know. They both questioned. But Moses is treading that fine line between God is not offended by our doubts. He's not offended by our concerns. He's not offended by our objections and our arguing. Believe me, he's big enough. He can take it. And also there is a line. And at some point you step over that line and now you're just being a whiny hiney. Oh, I am the most unluckiest boy in the whole world. But Yahweh says, Moses, oh, Moses, I have saved you. I am saving you every single day. I mean, how do you think you made it this far, buddy? But Yahweh doesn't chastise Moses. You notice it doesn't say, how dare you for questioning me? He doesn't. He doesn't say that. No, instead, Yahweh says, now a lesson. A lesson for you, a lesson for Israel, a lesson for Pharaoh, and a lesson for Egypt. Now you will see what I will do. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen.